So we are recording this meeting today. So if you would like to turn off your camera and doesn't want to be in the recording, you can do that. There's no obligation for cameras being on, but we will do our best to share this recording with everybody that's here and that's not here today. So quick agenda for today. I'm going to do a quick introduction of our Marysville board members. I'm going to discuss some potential topics for future seminars, feedback, Q&A rules, and then I am going to hand it over to board for their presentation, and then we're going to open the session for Q&A in the end. So for Marysville board, I'm going to say everybody's name. Please raise your hand when I say your name. So Rajiv Chadha is our director. Abraham Hasabi as our president, myself as president-elect and VP for rank and file. Bruno Costa is our VP for supervisory. And then Napas is our secretary for Marysville Section, and Sarju Patel as our treasurer for Marysville Section. And I want to thank all these people for helping us organize this presentation. It wouldn't have been organized without their help and continued support. And I also want to thank Michelle for helping us organize this meeting as well. So due to time constraint associated with this presentation, we decided to delay some of the other topics for future seminars. So some of the topics that we're going to cover in future seminars are reimbursement for exam and course fees, and time off for exam, and PE application experience from other PEs who have gone through this process. And I want to add this slide with this feedback. With this feedback slide, we need your feedback for this presentation, and give us your feedback for future presentations as well. What kind of topics you guys want us to cover? What are your needs, whether it's professional development or any other topic that you guys want us to cover? You guys can contact any board member, or you guys can contact me. This is my contact info here, and we will do our best to have that presentation for you guys. And some Q&A rules before we begin. Wait until the presentation is finished to mute yourself. And if you have a question during the presentation, you can put it in chat, and we'll ask that question in the order it came. Now I am going to give it to the board. We have Natalie King from the board. She's going to introduce herself and begin the presentation.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So my name is Natalie King, and I am a licensed civil engineer. I am a senior registrar at the California Board for Professional Engineers, Land Surveyors, and Geologists. And I'm here today to talk about very briefly who is the board. A lot of people who come right out of college aren't really aware of who the board is, except that we are who you send your application to. I'm going to focus the presentation on licensure, specifically the education and experience requirements, and then also the application process and state exams. So hopefully that is the information that most of you are looking for today. Feel free to include any questions in the chat. I'll keep an eye on them. And if it's something I can answer right away, if it's the appropriate time, then I'll do so. Otherwise, I'll wait till the end to answer those. So go ahead and throw those up in the chat if you see them or if you think of them. So who is the board? The California Board for Professional Engineers, Land Surveyors, and Geologists currently consists of 15 board members. There are 8 public members and 7 practitioners. These board members are all appointed by government officials. And although there is a licensed civil engineer on the board, that is not me. I am considered board staff. And we have 4 licensed professionals on staff. So myself as a civil engineer, we also have a professional geologist and certified engineering geologist, and a land surveyor. And then we have a vacant senior registrar role right now, which will be filled by another professional engineer, licensed engineer. And so it's our role as the licensed professionals on staff to assist the board members with anything that they need in our particular discipline. We also assist the enforcement unit. So anytime there is a complaint that is sent to the board, we help our enforcement analyst investigate the complaint and determine whether the individual is in violation of our laws and regulations. We also assist the exam unit with the development of our state exams. So me specifically, I help with the engineering, surveying, and the seismic principles exams that are required for civil engineering licensure. And I also assist with the development of our state geotechnical engineer exam and state traffic engineer exam. We also do outreach, which is my favorite part of the job. And then we also assist our licensing unit with application review. So I do review civil engineer applications, structural, geotechnical, and traffic engineer applications. So the purpose of the board is protection of the public. The board was created, the California board was created in the 1920s, and it was for the protection of the public. The board was created right after the collapse of the St. Francis Dam down in LA. As you can imagine, after a dam failure, there was lots of lives that were lost, property and structures that were damaged. And so the California legislature decided that we needed to regulate the practice of civil engineering, and that is why the board was created. So California is unique in that we issue discipline-specific licenses. There are other states that issue a professional engineer license, and that encompasses all different disciplines. In California, we only issue discipline-specific licenses. And the table I have on this screen shows the various disciplines of engineering that we issue a license for. And they've been divided up into 3 different types. We have our Practice Act licenses, our Title Authorities, and then our Title Act licenses. And thinking about these from a public protection standpoint, our Practice Acts are the highest level of public protection. And the reason for that is not only does the board regulate the practice, but also the title. So only somebody who is licensed in California as a civil engineer can use the title civil engineer and can offer or practice civil engineering. The same goes with electrical and mechanical engineering. Next, we have our title authorities, and this is like a specialty license, because first you need to be licensed in California as a civil engineer, and then with additional exams and additional work experience within that specific discipline, you can apply to use the title geotechnical engineer or structural engineer. Now, it's worth noting that with a civil engineer license, you can practice geotechnical engineering and structural engineering. You just cannot use the title geotechnical engineer or structural engineer. The only exception to that is work that is done on public schools and hospitals. Those state agencies do require that you have a geotechnical engineer license or a structural engineer license to do that work. But all other civil engineering can be done, or excuse me, all other geotechnical and structural work can be done with a civil engineer license. And finally, we have our Title Acts, and these are lowest level of public protection because we only regulate the title, meaning anyone can practice or offer to practice these various disciplines of engineering. So agricultural engineering, chemical engineering, industrial, nuclear, traffic. You don't need to have a license to practice these disciplines of engineering, only to use the title. And for each of these disciplines, we have legal definitions. Our Practice Acts are defined in statute, in law, and our Title Authorities and Title Acts are defined in regulation. So looking specifically at the requirements for licensure in California. Now, with the exception of the NCES exams, which I'll mention on the next couple slides, all of this information is specific to California. Professional licensure is regulated by the individual states, and so every state has their own laws and regulations and requirements for licensure. So in California, an applicant for licensure as a professional engineer must take and pass the FE exam, that's the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. They must take and pass the PE exam, that's the Principles and Practice of Engineering exam, and that needs to be taken in the discipline that you're applying for licensure. You must also demonstrate 6 years or more of qualifying engineering experience. Now, California does have an experience-only pathway to licensure, meaning you do not need engineering education. However, most of our applicants do claim education as part of this experience requirement. And then for civil engineering, geotechnical engineering, and traffic engineering, we do have California specific exams that you must also pass before you can get your license. So quickly looking through all of those requirements, I'm going to briefly discuss the two national exams that are required for licensure, and that is the FE exam and the PE exam. These exams are not developed by the California board. These are developed by NCEES, and they are administered by Pearson VUE testing centers. Excuse me. So the FE exam, the Fundamentals of Engineering exam, this is that first step in the process to becoming a licensed a licensed engineer. This exam is specifically designed for recent graduates or those students who are close to finishing their undergraduate engineering degree. And there are 7 disciplines that you can select from when registering for this exam. It does not matter which FE exam you take and pass. Any of the 7 disciplines will be acceptable for licensure, regardless of what license you wish to pursue. This FE exam is a computer-based exam. It is offered year-round at Pearson VUE testing centers around the country. It is 110 questions. You have 6 hours to complete the exam, and you register and pay directly to NCEES. Once you've passed the FE exam, you're eligible to register for the PE exam. And the PE exam does need to be taken and passed in the discipline that you wish to be licensed. So if you are looking to get a civil engineer license, you do need to take and pass the PE civil exam. Now, unlike the FE exam, which is more of a find the equation, solve for X type questions, the PE exam is going to reflect real world practice. The questions are going to be scenario-based questions in the discipline that you are applying. There are 5 disciplines that are available for the PE civil exam, and I have those on the next slide. It is 80 questions, including alternative item type questions, and you have a total of 8 hours to complete the exam. Once you've passed the FE exam, you can register and pay for the PE exam directly to NCEES. This is a computer-based exam. It went computer-based in January of 2022. Also offered at Pearson VUE testing centers throughout the country year-round. It is a closed book exam. You will be provided with a digital reference handbook, which is about 500 pages of equations, charts, figures, and graphs that will be used for your exam. And then any design codes and standards that are needed for your specific exam will be provided to you, again, as a digital PDF file that you can use on exam day. These are the 5 disciplines that are offered for the PE civil exam. These exam specifications, which are available on the NCEES website. I have the link on the previous slide. These exam specifications did recently get updated. They're updated about every 5 to 7 years, and the new exam specifications went into effect on April 1st of this year. So if you happen to go to the NCS website and download the exam specifications prior to April, please note that they have been updated. And there were some pretty significant updates to the exam specifications. For those of you who have already passed the PE exam or perhaps took it before April, you may recall that there was a morning, what they called breadth section, and then an afternoon depth section. And so that morning breadth section, those 40 questions in the morning section covered all different disciplines of engineering, including construction, geotechnical, structural, transportation, and some water resources and environmental. And then your afternoon depth section was specific to the discipline that you selected. They have gotten rid of the breadth section of the exam. And so now the PE civil exam is much more discipline specific. So if you register for this PE Civil Geotechnical Engineer exam, your entire exam is going to be heavily focused on geotechnical engineering topics. The questions will include a little bit of the other disciplines, but it will be in a way that still focuses on geotechnical engineering, but perhaps the construction related activities when looking specifically at the geotechnical part of a project. So there's pros and cons to this, to these new exam specifications. The one thing I do want to mention is that these new exam specifications do not change licensure in California or limit your area of practice once you do get licensed. So if you take the PE Civil geotechnical exam and pass it, that does not mean that you can only practice in the area of geotechnical engineering, or that your license is going to state PE Civil with an emphasis in geotechnical engineering or parentheses geotechnical engineering. California only issues a PE Civil engineer license. So regardless of which of these exams you take and pass, your license will still be a civil engineer license, and you can practice civil engineering. The only thing is that, as it states in our laws, that you should only practice in the areas that you are fully competent by education and experience. There's a question quickly in the chat. Is there a limit on the number of times you can take the PE exam? The FE and PE exams, you can take those once per quarter and 3 times per year. So once per quarter, 3 times per year. And you do have to pay each time you take the exam. Okay, so we've talked about that first bullet, the fundamentals of engineering exam. We talked about the second bullet, the PE civil exam. Now I want to focus on the 6 years or more of qualifying engineering experience requirement. So as I mentioned, California does have an experience-only pathway to licensure. So you can have 6 years of engineering experience in civil engineering and apply for your civil engineer license. However, most people do claim education as credit for experience. And so if you're going to claim engineering education, depending on what your degree is and whether it is accredited by ABET, we will grant you experience credit. So a bachelor's degree from a non-ABET accredited program, engineering program, will receive 2 years of experience credit, and then you would need 4 years of work experience. If you have a bachelor's degree from an ABET accredited engineering program, you will receive 4 years of experience credit and then need the 2 years of experience. And if you have a master's or a PhD from a board approved program, you will receive 5 years of experience credit and then just need 1 additional year of work experience. Now, the reason that the master's and PhD says board approved and not ABET accredited is because ABET does not accredit very many postgraduate degree programs. And so the way that the board members have decided whether to determine whether the program is eligible for 5 years of experience credit is that if the undergraduate degree program from the same university is accredited by ABET, then we will consider the postgraduate degree program from the same university to be board approved. So if you go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and you have a master's degree in civil engineering, if you go to ABET's website, you'll notice that the master's degree program is not listed as an accredited program, but the bachelor's degree program is. So we will consider your master's degree in civil engineering as board approved, and you will get 5 years of credit. Another question that I oftentimes get is, what if my bachelor's degree is non-accredited or maybe not even an engineering program, but I did go get a master's or a PhD in civil engineering from a board approved program? We will give you the 5 years of experience credit. So we're looking for the highest education that you are claiming, and we will grant you the years of experience based on that. Non-ABET bachelor's or ABET master's. So I believe I did answer that. And if I didn't, Nicole, just put it back up in the chat. So your work experience does need to be after you graduate. So because we are going to give you credit for your education, your work experience must be after the date of graduation shown on your official transcripts. your work experience needs to be in the discipline that you are applying. So if you are applying for a civil engineer license, your work experience must meet the definition of civil engineering, which is in PE Act Section 6731, and it's on the screen right now. One thing I want to point out with this definition, it has been around since the board was created. Remember, the board was initially created to regulate the practice of civil engineering. So this definition has been around for many years. And we really need to focus on the first part of this, in that civil engineering is a study or activity in connection with a fixed work. So a fixed work for irrigation, a fixed work for drainage, for flood control, for railroads and highways, for purification of water. We really need to focus that civil engineering is a study or activity in connection with a fixed work. Another section of the law that I want to bring to your attention is just after the definition of civil engineering, and this is section 6731.3, which is the authority for civil engineers to practice or offer to practice construction project management services. Now, there's some confusion out in the industry that this section is stating that construction project management is civil engineering. And that is not what this section is describing. This is stating that a civil engineer has the authority to practice construction project management services, but these services are not civil engineering. So construction mobilization and supervision, bid evaluation, project scheduling, the general management and administration of a construction project is not civil engineering. Civil engineers do this work, but it does not require that somebody with a license do this work. You can do project scheduling without having a civil engineer license. So even though a civil engineer may do these tasks are not civil engineering. The same goes with traffic engineering. If you recall from a previous slide, traffic engineering is a title act, meaning that anyone can practice traffic engineering. You do not need a license to practice traffic engineering. And so civil engineers oftentimes in the transportation realm will be practicing civil and traffic engineering because they are allowed to do so. Anyone can practice traffic engineering. But it's important to know that there are two different definitions and there is no overlap or gray area between the two. So civil engineering is a study or activity in connection with a fixed work, whereas traffic engineering is dealing more with traffic generation and flow. And so it's important for people who are applying for a civil engineer license or those who are practicing understand that there are two different licenses here, two different definitions, and no overlap between the two. So looking at a timeline for professional licensure, as I mentioned, the FE exam is really for those students who are close to finishing an engineering degree or shortly after graduating with an undergraduate degree. And then your focus is really to take and pass the PE exam and gain the required work experience. Once you've met those three requirements, the FE, PE, and work experience, that is when you can apply to the board for your license. So the civil engineer application has moved to our online BPELS Connect system. All of our engineering licenses, our applications are now in BPELS Connect. We recently launched the last of the engineering ones. So the traffic engineering and geotechnical engineering are also now in BPELS Connect. All of the information that was in the paper application is required for the online version. It's just online now. So you will create an account with BPELS Connect, select that you are applying for a civil engineer license, and then you'll move through the various tabs and complete the information that is required. Your work experience will be included on what is called a work experience engagement and reference form. And so part A will be filled out online by you, the applicant. And this is just a screenshot of the first part of that part A. So here's where you're going to enter your engagement dates. And you'll notice that there's a to and a from, and then a total time worked and a qualifying experience, two different fields. The total time worked will be automatically populated based on the to and from dates. And then your qualifying experience needs to be manually entered by you. And the reason that this is not the same as total, it may be the same as total time worked, but it could be different. So if the project you're working on is 50% civil engineering and 50% traffic engineering, you may have a total time worked of 30 months, but you're only going to claim 15 of those months because that is your qualifying time. Or maybe you've been working at Caltrans while you were still in school, and so your total time worked might be, again, 60 months, but you can only claim the time that was after your graduation. So it would be a shorter number of months. That's where you can capture that information. You're also going to include your employer information and your reference information. On the second part of Part A, which is completed by you, the applicant, this is where you're going to describe your engineering tasks and decisions, your engineering tasks and duties, the level of responsibility that you have on this project, as well as a description of the decisions that you have been involved in and the sampling of the projects that you've worked on. This is where you are describing your civil engineering work. So this is where you need to reference back to that back to that section of the PE Act and use I think it's 800 characters in each of the fields. So there's not a lot of room, but there is sufficient room for you to describe specific civil engineering tasks and duties, specific civil engineering decisions that you have made. This is not the time to try to paint that you are a well-rounded engineer. This is where you want to be very specific about the civil engineering work that you have been involved in and the decisions that you have made while using your engineering judgment. So be specific. Be sure to demonstrate that the work you're doing is civil engineering work and can only be done by somebody who is licensed as a civil engineer. Once you have completed your application and submitted a minimum of 4 work experience engagements, that is when you will pay for and submit your application. At that point, your references will receive an email with a link to review Part A and verify Part A and then complete Part B. So it's important for you to, I'm going to jump back, while filling this part of the application out, maybe put this information in an email and send it to your references ahead of time. Give them the opportunity to review the work experience that you're going to submit before you actually submit it. And the reason for that is you cannot edit the information in Part A once you've submitted your application. So if your reference wants you to provide additional information or clarification, or they say, you know what, you really probably need to be more specific about this work that you did on this particular project, you're only going to be able to do that before you submit your application. So complete this part of your application outside of Connect. Communicate with your references, let them review it and provide comments before you submit your application. At that time, you can also let them know that they're going to be a reference for you, and that as soon as you submit your application, they will receive an email with a link to complete Part B. So Part B, to your reference, they will be able to view the information in Part A. Again, it will not be editable. So they can view the information in Part A, and then they will be required to complete Part B. You as the applicant will not see their responses to Part B. So I wanted to provide you with what is being asked of them so that you have an idea. So Part B is going to ask your reference general information, their name, what company they work for, their license information. And then they're going to be asked a series of questions, including what their relationship was with you. And this is the options for this first question are employer supervisor, in responsible charge, coworker, reviewed work, and other. So your reference is going to have to select what relation they have with you as for the work that you've included in Part A. We're also going to ask if they are related to you, if they verify the information that you included in Part A, and if they have personal knowledge of your work experience. So have they personally seen and reviewed your work? And then we're going to ask the question, do you consider the applicant technically qualified to be licensed as a professional engineer? So this is where you want to make sure that you are giving your reference a heads up and that they are comfortable enough being a professional reference for you. So one of the options in that first question, which was, what is your relation with the applicant? Again, it was employer, supervisor, and then in responsible charge. And then we had reviewed work, client, other. Responsible charge essentially means that because you as an applicant are not licensed as a civil engineer, you cannot legally practice civil engineering. Remember, civil engineering is a practice act, meaning only someone who is licensed as a civil engineer can practice, or only somebody who is being directly supervised by a licensed civil engineer in responsible charge can practice. So as an applicant, any civil engineering work that you are doing must be under the direct supervision of a licensed civil engineer who is in responsible charge of your civil engineering tasks, your civil engineering decisions and recommendations. So you need to be sure that you include at least one reference who was in responsible charge of your work. And the reason for that is I can only accept months of experience that were under somebody who was in responsible charge of your work. So if you're claiming 24 months of experience, but none of your references are in responsible charge, I can't accept those 24 months. So you do need to submit a reference in responsible charge. Not all of your references need to be in responsible charge. Once you have at least one reference in responsible charge for the number of months that you need in order to satisfy the requirements, your other references can be a coworker, can be a client, a subconsultant. They just need to be familiar with your work experience. You have to submit a minimum of 4 references. They do need to have personal knowledge of your work experience. This doesn't mean that they formally review your work at your workplace. This just means that they have enough knowledge to know whether you have the technical skills needed to be licensed. Your references must be civil engineers. They may be licensed outside of California. We also accept work experience outside the United States, but your references need to be legally authorized to practice civil engineering in whatever jurisdiction that they are in. And we will ask for documentation to show that they are legally authorized to practice if outside the United States. And then we only accept references who answer yes to that question, whether they consider you technically qualified to be licensed. Some common application deficiencies that we see, the first one being that transcripts are not being sent. Because you're not packaging your application up and mailing it to the board, we find that applicants are forgetting that they need to provide transcripts. This isn't something that you upload during the application process. So once you submit your application, you do need to request your college or university to either mail or email the official transcripts to the board. You can also choose to upload them to an NCES account, and we have access to that. Another deficiency that we see is that in Part A, applicants are vague or too general in how they're describing their civil engineering tasks, duties, and decisions. And so again, being specific to what civil engineering tasks you're doing and what decisions that you have been involved in. Also, another deficiency is that work experience includes non-civil engineering work. Again, this is not your opportunity to show that you are a well-rounded employee. This is your opportunity to show that you have the technical skills to be licensed as a civil engineer. So we don't want to hear about your project management skills or your construction project management skills, or your traffic engineering or your environmental work that doesn't require a license. Only include your civil engineering work and the number of months associated with that work. Also, some deficiencies, you cannot claim work experience that was research for a thesis or dissertation. It has to be actual work experience related to a specific project. And then a common one that we see once you've already submitted your application and you're in the review process, when you receive a deficiency and you are asked to submit work experience or clarify your work experience, please note that the comment section of the deficiency portal is not where you do that. If we do not accept your work experience and we're asking you to resubmit your work experience or submit new work experience, you do need to do that in a work experience engagement and reference form, because we need a reference to verify that the work you're submitting is true. So we won't accept work experience that is described in the comment section of the deficiency. We will only accept work experience that has been submitted as part of your application and reviewed and verified by your reference. And I know a lot of comments are going up in the chat. I'm going to go through my presentation and then I'll go back to them. So once your application is approved, this is when you can log back into Connect and register for your state exam. So now, instead of you being on a list that's once your application is approved, you're automatically taking your exams the next quarter. That's no longer the case. Now, once your application is approved, it's your responsibility to log into Connect and select which quarter you want to take your exam and pay for your exam. You can pick between 2 quarters. The current quarter will not be available to you. Only the next 2 quarters will be available to you. But you can decide to only focus on one exam, or you can decide to pay for both exams, maybe in the same quarter, 2 different quarters. So that flexibility is now available now that we're in Connect. Once you have selected the quarter and paid for your exam, you will receive an email from Prometric. Prometric is the testing agency that we use to administer our exams. And this will allow you to schedule the specific day, time, and location. So in Connect, you pick what quarter, and then through Prometric, it's the specific day, time, and location. So our state exams for civil engineers, there's 2 state exams. There's the engineering surveying exam and the seismic principles exam. These are both computer-based exams. They're 2.5 hours each, both being 55 questions, including alternative item type questions. So similar to the FE and PE exams. We offer these exams on a quarterly basis, just meaning that as your application gets approved, you get to pick what quarter you're going to sit for the exam. We issue results monthly. There is no specific day or time that we send these results out. It varies every month. There's a process with Prometric and the board staff to ensure that the results are ready to be sent out, but you will receive them the month after you sit for the exam. And then we do have exam specifications available on our website, and we did recently update the engineering, surveying, and seismic principle exam. So as of January, we have those new exam specifications and are testing to the new CBC. So here are the domains that are tested for the engineering surveying exam. If you go to our website, the link on the previous slide, there is much more information about specifically what topics will be tested on within these domains. Same for the seismic principles exam. These are the general domains, but you can find more information on specifically what will be tested in those exam specifications that are on our website. Some additional information just for you to have. I will send a PDF of this presentation to go along with the recording, so you'll have this information. If you need to reschedule within the same quarter, you can do that through Prometric. If you need to change your exam to a different quarter, that's something that you will have to contact the board exam unit. Although our exams are computer-based, they are open book, but you do need to have only bound reference materials, and they have to fit into a banker's box. You can bring up to 2 calculators with you. I recommend bringing 2. If something happens to one of them, you're not going to have the opportunity to have somebody give you one. So always a good idea to bring 2, and you will be provided with scratch paper and pencils at the exam test location. You can only write on the scratch paper booklets. It's basically an 11 by 17 folded in half. You'll get 2 of them. If you need additional, you'll turn in the 2 that were provided to you and then get 2 scratch paper or 2 blank ones. You cannot write in any of the reference material that you bring to the exam site. You will be asked to leave and your exam will not be recorded. Also, candidate information bulletins. You can find these on the Prometric website. This will include all of the information you need to know about these exams in terms of what time you should arrive, what you need to bring with you, what you can have in your locker, can you take a break, things like that. So be sure to read your candidate information bulletin before you sit for the exam. Results will be provided to you through Connect. So you will receive an email letting you know that your results are available and whether you've passed or failed. If you have not passed the exam, you can click on the fail link in Connect and it will provide you with a diagnostic report. If you don't fail, you can retake these exams up again once per quarter and up to 3 times per year. So for all exams, NCES and our state exams, for civil at least, it's once per quarter and up to 3 times per year. Here are the results for the Seismic Principles and Engineering Surveying exam from 2023. These results were recently published in our board meeting minutes, the last board meeting. So if you need to access those, they are in the minutes. And this is for 3rd quarter and 4th quarter. So I think overall for 2023, we had about a 50% pass rate, plus or minus a percentage for both seismic principles and engineering surveying. A couple things I want to note before I move away from the exam results is when you have your application approved and you go in to connect to pay for and register for your exam, some words of advice: schedule your exam in the 1st or 2nd month of the quarter. And the reason for that, there's 2 reasons. One, the pass rates are typically higher in the 1st and 2nd month. But from a logistical standpoint, if you happen to not pass the exam, if you take it in the 1st or 2nd quarter, you will have the opportunity to schedule it for the very next quarter. So for example, if you take your exam in July, you will get your results in August. And if you find out that you don't pass, you can log into Connect in August or September and schedule your exam for quarter 4, right? So July, August, September, that's quarter 3. So when you log into Connect, the next 2 quarters will be available to you. So you can schedule for quarter 4. If you don't take your exam until September, your results won't be sent to you until October, which is now quarter 4, meaning the earliest you would be able to schedule your next exam would be quarter 1. And you've completely missed the opportunity in quarter 4 to take that exam. So if you're trying to get these exams taken and passed as quickly as possible, I would advise you to schedule your exam in the 1st or 2nd month of the quarter. And then just some general administrative stuff. If you're not yet subscribed to the board's email list, I would encourage you to do that. You will not be bombarded with emails. I think I get an email to my personal email once every 2 months when there's a board meeting. But it is important when various laws and regulations are updated or if there's changes to the application process, we will send out an email. So if you're not yet subscribed to that, please do so. We also will send emails out about occupational analysis. So every 5 to 7 years when we update our state exam specifications, we go through what's called an occupational analysis. And that is where we ask all licensees to provide information on what they think should be tested on the state exam. So currently we're going through a traffic engineer occupational analysis where we're updating the traffic specifications. We're also going through a geotechnical engineer occupational analysis. And we just recently completed the engineering, surveying, and seismic principles. And so we rely on licensees to give us feedback on what we should be testing on those exams. And the only way to receive that information is either through our email list or being members of the professional societies and having them email that out, which many of you probably are. Also, ways to stay current with what's going on at the board. We have quarterly board bulletins that focus on our enforcement exams, licensing, and outreach. You can also access the minutes to our previous board meetings. Our board meetings are every 2 months. Some of them are available virtually, but they are all open to the public, and they rotate between Sacramento and then somewhere in Southern California. So if you are able to come to a board meeting, I would encourage you to do so. And then I just wanted to throw this up. This is my last slide. Some common violations that we see for licensees. If you remember from one of my very first slides, we are discipline specific in California. And so you can only practice within the discipline that you are licensed. So if you are licensed as a civil engineer, that means you can practice civil engineering. Mechanical and electrical engineers cannot practice civil engineering. We do have some exemptions that allow civil engineers to practice mechanical and electrical as long as it is on a civil engineering project, but it doesn't go the other way around. So knowing what the extent of your practice is for your license is the responsibility of the licensee. Also, some common violations, civil engineers practicing land surveying. A civil engineer is tested on engineering surveying, and 6731.1 allows a civil engineer to practice engineering surveying. This is not land surveying. You do need to have a land surveying license, be a land surveyor to practice land surveying. There is a very, very small subset of surveying that engineers are legally authorized to do. So knowing what that is. Failing to sign and stamp engineering documents or notate interim or preliminary documents. So the law on this states that any civil engineering document at a minimum must have the licensee's name and number, license number. So at a minimum. If it is a draft document or preliminary not for construction, there needs to be some notation stating that. And then if it's a final document, it needs to include, in addition to the name and license number, it must have the signature and date of signing, as well as the seal of the responsible charge engineer. And then we also have some written contract violations. So I would encourage you to look at that section of the law and be sure that your contracts include everything that is required by law. And that concludes my that concludes my presentation. Sorry. I'm going to go through these questions and see if I can get them all answered. Oh, first one, how long is the current timeline for PE application approval? We are currently reviewing applications that were sent to technical review in mid-February. So the process when you submit your application, once you have a complete application submitted, meaning not only have you submitted it, but you have now provided the transcripts and at least 4 of your references have responded to Part B. That's what we consider a complete application. Also that you've passed the laws and rules exam. Then you have an evaluator look at your application, and they are just ensuring that it is a complete application, that you've met the minimum requirements in terms of transcripts, 4 references. Once an evaluator has determined that you've done that, then your application gets sent to technical review. Once in technical review, it will be reviewed by a senior registrar, and that timeline depends on how many deficiencies you may have in your application. So as I said, right now we're reviewing applications sent to technical review in mid-February. Those are new to technical review or ones that had deficiencies that were resubmitted in February. So we're slowly catching up. We did have a huge volume of applications submitted when we went to online that we were kind of playing catch up on, but we're saying the timeline is still 4 to 6 months, but it's probably much shorter than that. But again, it depends on whether you have deficiencies that will definitely delay your approval process. Is the FE the same as the EIT? Yes. The reason it's not called the EIT anymore is because you take the exam and then you apply for your EIT certificate. They've been decoupled, so no longer do you take the exam and then are automatically issued your certificate. So that's why that changed. Is there a limit on the number of times you can take the PE exam? No. You can take it as many times as you need to pass. Same with the state exams. There is no limit on how many times you can take the exam. I started working on my PE prior to the COVID lockdown, passed the take-home and the survey exams. I did not pass seismic or 8-hour. Do I need to start from scratch? I would recommend emailing me. My email is on the slide right here. I will also email the slides out. But I don't think you will need to restart from scratch and retake your exam, but I would need to just double check with our evaluators on that. What about a non-ABET bachelor's? A non-ABET bachelor's degree, as long as it is an engineering program, you will get 2 years of experience credit for that. An ABET master's or a board approved master's, that will be given 5 years of credit. Do you need to have taken the FE before getting your master's to get credit for the PE? No, we don't care when you've passed the FE and PE exam. That is completely separate from your education and your experience. So whenever you pass the FE and PE exams, that's great. It has no bearing on when you have to finish your degree, education degree. Can you talk about the FE waiver? Yeah, let me see. I have extra slides here in case questions came up. So this is the FE waiver. If you want to, I don't recommend requesting to waive the FE waiver. But if you need to, or you want to, you do at a minimum need to have a bachelor's degree in an engineering program. Doesn't need to be ABET accredited, but it does need to be a bachelor's in an ABET accredited program. And then depending on your bachelor's degree, if you have a master's or a PhD, that will determine how many years of experience that you are required to present. So a board approved PhD program, you would have to submit 12 months of experience. A non-ABET accredited bachelor's degree, you would have to submit 17 years. So it goes anywhere from 12 months to 17 years. And you can, this is on our website. You can also look in board rule 438 is where this is described, or you can email me and I will give you your specific circumstances. Okay, we did that. What if the bachelor's and master's is not from an ABET accredited program? You would get 2 years if it's engineering. Waiver, can utility engineer claim work experience as civil engineer PE application? We don't really care what your title is. We just want to know what type of work you're doing. So as long as your work experience is civil engineering, then you can claim it on a civil engineer application. Traffic signing and striping design is traffic engineering or civil engineering. Signing and striping is traffic engineering. So is temporary construction plans, traffic control, warrant studies, signal design, intersection design, all of that work is traffic engineering and does not qualify for civil engineering. Under the direct supervision of branch chief utility engineering work group. I'm not sure if that's a question. Can a PE from Texas count as a reference? Yes, they do not have to be licensed in California, but they do need to be a licensed civil engineer and have personal knowledge of your civil engineering work. Sometimes I get the question, I say for engagement 1, the work experience that you described is not civil engineering, submit another one. You can submit the same reference if they are familiar with civil engineering work that you've done, but we're not going to accept a reference that is verified work experience that is not civil engineering. They have to go hand in hand. A reference has to be able to verify work that qualifies as civil engineering. Do we still have scheduling and critical path concept questions on the PE? And isn't construction still one of the sections of the PE test? If that's not engineering, then why is it included in our licensing test? The national exams, the NCEES exams, are national exams. So the exam specifications, the topics that are chosen to be tested, are determined based on engineers across the country. California is one of the only states that issues a discipline-specific license. And so the reason that the NCES exams cover information and topics that are not considered civil engineering is because in the other states, it is included in civil engineering. So applicants are required to demonstrate and meet the requirements in the state that they are applying. So in California, construction management is not civil engineering. You do not need a license to do construction management. So even though we will accept the PE civil exam that is in the construction discipline, we won't accept construction work experience. Same with the PE civil transportation exam is heavily traffic engineering. That's not going to count as work experience. We'll accept the exam, but we will not accept that work experience. So just be aware that just because it's on an exam that we will accept for licensure doesn't mean that the work experience meets the definition of civil engineering. Great question. I get that all the time. Does the duty statement of a utility engineer work as work experience? Please don't put duty statements in your description of work experience. You'll be surprised. I get that. I want to know in your own words, what civil engineering are you doing? So be sure to include specifically what tasks, duties, and decisions you're working on. What engineering judgment did you have to use in order to make a recommendation about how big the storm drain needed to be? What type of calculations did you do to determine how much rebar needed to be placed in concrete? That's the type of work I'm looking for. I'm not looking for prepared design documents for street upgrade. That doesn't tell me anything. Be very specific about what work experience you're doing. Will work after college count even if the engineer did not have their FE yet? Yes. We don't care when you passed your exams. If 2 years of work experience without an FE has been completed, can those 2 years be used as an engagement? Yes, absolutely. How do you count months of experience? For example, sorry, I know it's after 1 o'clock. Do you need me to pause or should I just keep going?
Oh, you can keep going.
Okay. How do you count months of experience? For example, if we worked 1 week off and on for 4 months, do you count that as just 1 month or 4? Oh, sorry, you answered that question. Okay. Is there a time limit on passing the exams after your application is approved? No. The only time limit we have is if your application is approved and you don't attempt any exams for 2 years, your application will be considered abandoned and you will have to completely reapply all over again. So as long as you're actively attempting the exams, we don't care if you're passing them or not passing them, but as long as you're actively attempting the exams and don't lay stagnant for 2 years, then there's no time limit on that. Is there a time limit on passing state exams? Okay, so I answered that. Are there any specific number of projects required for the reference? No. Can the same project overlap between 2 references? Yes, great question. So the way you fill out your engagement record and reference forms, there's various scenarios. So the easiest, most simple is that you've been working at the same firm or the same agency for, let's say you have a bachelor's degree. So for 2 years, same types of projects with 4 civil engineers. You can have your dates of engagement, your qualifying months claimed, your description of engineering decisions, duties, tasks, projects, all of that can be the same identical description, but you include 4 references to verify that work. I actually just got an email about this right before. So you might have everything be the same except maybe the projects. Maybe you have worked on different projects with different references, but essentially the tasks, duties, and decisions were the same. So you might change just the projects on there. So you can make those as simple or as complicated as you want, but know that it is okay to have it be the same as long as that is applicable to your situation. If you worked on different work with a different reference, then you're going to want to reflect that on your Part A. But you can have overlap. Is it acceptable if 2 of my references are my supervisors for a total of 4 years and the other 2 are coworkers? Yes. So again, if you are claiming 4 years of experience, let's say for engagement 1, and your reference was your supervisor, they were in responsible charge, as long as the work describes civil engineering, then I'm going to accept 4 years of experience for engagement 1. Your other references for engagement 2, 3, and 4 can be coworkers. They don't have to be in responsible charge. If a PE was licensed during my 2 years experience, can he still verify my 2 years even though he's only been licensed for 1 year? No, you cannot be in responsible charge if you don't have a license. So we can only accept months of experience under somebody who is licensed and in responsible charge. They can still be a reference because they were licensed during a portion of your experience. So they can count as one of your 4 references, but we can't accept the months that you're claiming, if that makes sense. Can a reference be retired as long as their license hasn't expired? Yes, they can be retired. You can even include a reference whose license has expired, so long as it was current during the time that you're claiming. So if you worked on a project for, in 2018 and your reference was licensed at that time, but since they've retired and their license has expired, as long as they were licensed during the time of the project, they will be an acceptable reference. We as PE are how can we approve? I have personal knowledge of the applicant's work experience for the following dates. Some state employees have to change different projects and a supervisor has info about a timesheet. How can a PE be sure we have the dates? So this is your personal knowledge. I'm not asking you to check in with HR to see how long somebody's been working at Caltrans. This question is asking, how long have you personally been working with the applicant and are familiar with their civil engineering work? Have you been working on a project with them for 12 months? So you shouldn't have to contact HR or look at timesheets to answer this question. This would be your personal knowledge of their work experience that you've been involved in. That's what that question is asking. If only 1 month and 1 reference is in responsible charge, is that adequate? If you claim 1 month of experience from a reference who is in responsible charge, I will accept 1 month, but you need to somehow claim additional months of experience under the responsible charge of somebody. So what I mean by you only need 1 reference in responsible charge, it's 1 reference in responsible charge of the minimum number of months you need to qualify. So if you have a PhD from a board approved program, you need 12 months of experience. If you have 1 reference in responsible charge for 12 months, then that's your 1 reference. The other 3 don't have to be in responsible charge. But if you've been working on a project with 1 reference for 4 months, then, and they're the only person who says that they are in responsible charge of your work when they complete Part B, then I'm only accepting 4 months. So you're going to have additional references to get those other months of experience. Okay. If transcripts have already been uploaded for the FE, do you have access for the PE verification? If you're talking about in NCES, then yes, we have access to that. If you've included them for your FE application, we may be able to access them. You would just want to contact your evaluator. And they would have to have been official transcripts. So oftentimes for an FE, you haven't yet completed your education. But if you have submitted them to the board, just email your evaluator and let them know that you've already submitted that, and then they can grab those from our system. Okay. Work experience must be in civil engineering disciplines. Tech doesn't count towards a PE exam requirement. I'm confused what I should include there. In civil engineering. So again, this question seems to be about titles. I don't really care what your title is at your work. I'm just concerned what your actual work experience is. So work experience must be in civil engineering. If your title is traffic engineering associate, I'm not going to count that against you. I'm going to wonder whether your work experience is traffic, but your actual title doesn't weigh in to me on whether I accept the work or not. It's really what work you're describing in that description of engineering tasks, duties, and decisions. My references were submitted in the first quarter. When can I expect the results from the board? Again, we're right now in mid-February, so hoping to get through all applications that were submitted, or we're hoping to get through all applications that were sent to technical review in Q1 before the end of this quarter. So we're hoping to review all applications from February and March before the end of April, May, June, before the end of June. But just know even though we're with applications sent to technical review in mid-February, there's over 500 applications in technical review. So since mid-February, we've had 500 people either submit an application or resolve a deficiency and resubmit. So that's the volume we're looking at here. So submitting an application with no deficiencies is your goal. Otherwise, it's gonna delay the process, which is why I suggest talking with your references ahead of time. Why is environmental work described as non-civil engineering work when civil engineering is a sub-discipline? But yeah, so again, the NCES exams, water resources and environmental, other states include environmental engineering in their civil engineering discipline. California does not. We do not issue an environmental engineer license, and we do not regulate the practice of engineering or of environmental engineering unless that work is already encompassed within the definition of civil engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, geology. And so if you're doing environmental work, you need to look real carefully at whether that work already falls within a discipline that we license or whether it's environmental work that doesn't require a license. But just because it's on an NCES exam does not mean that it is civil engineering. Okay. Do you have average PE pass rate for mechanical engineering? I don't, but NCES has on their website all pass rates for all exams that they administer. You can go to nces.org, click on exams, PE exams, and then if you scroll to the bottom and pick the discipline of the exam, so mechanical, and then scroll to the bottom again, there will be a link that says view pass rates, and you can view pass rates for all of the NCS exams. Awesome, thank you. I answered that. Yes, a retired license is okay. There is no maximum number. You can take the exams. Have pre-Connect applications been added to Connect? If you had an approved application, a paper application, you're continuing with that process. You would be scheduling your exams in Connect, but your application isn't in Connect. You just would be scheduling your re-exams in Connect. And if you have a question about doing that, just send me an email. Can we begin an online application prior to passing the PE exam? You can begin filling it out, but you can't submit it until you can answer yes to you've passed the PE exam. So nothing's stopping you from starting that. You just wouldn't be able to submit it. Specific examples of engineering surveying versus land surveying. Great question. Are we allowed to perform a topographic survey? Yes. Civil engineers are allowed to perform topographic surveys. They're allowed to perform construction surveys. What civil engineers cannot do is boundaries. You cannot take into account the shape and size of the earth. So anything that has to do with the shape of the earth is going to require land surveying. But you are allowed to do topographic and construction surveys. You would be figuring out the elevations based on a benchmark that was determined by a land surveyor. Electronic seal and signature is okay per board rules. I think that's board rule 418, 414, somewhere in there. But yes, an electronic seal is acceptable. Yes, please give feedback. Documents such as bases of design reports never intended for construction are not required to be signed and sealed. If it's not intended for construction, it does not need to be signed and sealed, but it does need to have the license name and number of the engineer in responsible charge. If it is a final document, then it would need the seal. I would recommend reading that section. I don't know it off the top of my head, 6736 maybe. That clearly lays out what type of reports, calculations, plans need to include signature and seal. Are preparing specs and estimates considered qualifying engineering tasks for a PE application? No, that work does not require that you're licensed, so it does not qualify. How will you verify the duration of work experience actually done? Will you require a certificate of employment of some sort? When you fill out the application, you are stating under penalty of perjury that the information is correct and true, and your references are also stating under penalty of perjury that the information is true. So we rely on you as the applicant and your references to be honest. And no, we don't require a certificate of employment. I have 500 applications to review. I don't have time to do that. Is the qualifying experience the same for EE versus EET, both ABET? I'm not sure what that means. Engineering education versus engineering education technology, maybe? I'm not sure if you could elaborate. Is a PE 8-hour exam a national exam? Can the 8-hour be used for other states? Yes, the national exams, both the FE and the PE exams are national exams. They're accepted in all states as well as some countries. So regardless of what state you pass the exam in, those results can be transferred to other states and used in other states to get licensed in more than one state. If one of your references refuses to sign for you, is there a penalty? Example, needing 2 additional signatures. We require a minimum of 4 acceptable references. So if one of your references is not licensed, if one of your references is related to you, if one of your references says, no, they are not qualified to be a licensed engineer, or they just decline to even fill out Part B, then you would need an additional reference. So you need 4 acceptable positive references. And we won't tell you what reference wasn't acceptable. I mean, there's ways to figure it out, but we won't give that information. Part B is completely confidential from the applicant. Where can we go to verify our college is accredited? Awesome. The ABET program, remember, it's not the school that's accredited, it's the actual program. So whatever degree is on your transcripts, that's the program that I'm looking for. Awesome. Thank you. Do I need to submit the transcript from the college as well since I transferred to the university? We just need the transcript that shows your degrees. We don't need community colleges or when you transfer, just final degree. Degree evaluations are not accepted. So only transcripts and only ABET, not mutual, what is it? MRA, mutual recognition agreements. That's not accepted. It's only accredited by ABET. Accredited bachelor's and master's in electrical, that's fine. We don't care what your degree is in, only that it is accredited. It's an engineering program and accredited by ABET. So it can be electrical, it can be mechanical, We just look to see if it's accredited by ABET. Yes, if your work experience is in civil engineering, absolutely apply for a civil engineer license. Tips and tricks, awesome. Would HVAC control engineering work count towards work experience for the electrical? If you want to email me that, I don't pretend to know what qualifies for electrical and mechanical. So I believe it would, but I could find out for you, Matthew, if you want to email that to me. Graduated from university in another country, not ABET. Is my university and degree acceptable? If it's an engineering degree and not ABET accredited, you'll get 2 years of credit for that. Everyone reviewing applications understands construction engineering is not the same as project management. I'm seeing too many reviews, only counting small portions of time reported as qualifying for the PE test. Remember, you've already passed the PE test when you've applied, so you're not applying to take the PE test. Project management is what contractors do. Construction engineering is what Caltrans engineers do, and that is not looking at schedules. It requires constant application of engineering principles, more importantly, understanding all disciplines of engineering, not just one subsection. I am only looking at what you describe your work experience as. So if you are describing civil engineering, then it will qualify as civil engineering. If you are describing something that is not civil engineering, it will not qualify. Oftentimes, myself, as well as the other senior registrars that review, we see the same type of work. And so we have templates to tell you, we could just tell you your work is not civil engineering. We try to provide some feedback as to why it's not civil engineering. And so, yes, we do oftentimes say it's project management, or it's construction project management, or we'll say it's traffic or engineering work or geology. But really, we are just looking to see, is it civil engineering or is it not civil engineering? And we are very familiar with what project management is and what construction engineering is. But please understand, construction engineering is not all civil engineering, and it's not all construction management, but it is your responsibility as an applicant to demonstrate that the tasks you're doing are civil engineering and require a license. A lot of that type of work does not require that somebody be licensed. So just be sure what you're describing is civil engineering and requires that somebody be licensed to do the work. We passed the 8-hour, never submitted our application. Does that 2-year inactive period count? If you have a question about specifically whether your work experience time counts, you can email me. But we don't consider only acceptable work experience in relation to when you pass those exams. Can you postpone your surveying exam? You would need to email our exam unit, or you can email me and I can forward it to them, but there are ways to postpone your exams. Do you ignore the 2-year lapse when the world was shut down, or do you have to reapply? That just depends. Sylvia, maybe email me and we can look at your specific situation. Is a lead work not count as irresponsible charge? Irresponsible, they don't need to have your, like, the actual title supervisor. Responsible charge just means that there is somebody who is licensed as a civil engineer that is taking responsibility for your work and your decision. So they don't have to be your actual on paper supervisor. They also don't have to be the person that is ultimately stamping and signing the plans or the report that you're working on. It just means who's looking over your shoulder that's licensed, that's making sure the work you're doing is civil engineering. What if we work on dozens of projects? Do we have to list every project? No, you don't need to list every single project you've worked on. Just give a sampling of the projects that you've worked on. What happens if one of your references dies? Oh, I'm so sorry. You would have to find another reference. If they are your responsible charge reference, you would have to find someone else, but you can always email us and we can brainstorm ideas to help you out with that. But you do need a minimum of 4 references. If your last name changed, is there any documents that you need to provide? I would email your evaluator to let them know that, just so that when they're pulling your exam results and looking at your transcripts and looking at your application, that they are clear about you're the same person, even though you have a name change. So just email your referent or your evaluator. If you pass, these were directly to me, so you might not see them. If you pass the water resources PE exam, can you practice transportation engineering? If not, then how? We don't regulate transportation engineering, so that sounds like it would be some civil engineering and some traffic engineering. You can practice traffic engineering all day long. You don't need a license to do that, so you don't have to pass an exam to do that. But you do need a license to practice civil engineering. So if the work you're doing when you say traffic or transportation engineering is civil, then you would need a civil engineer license. And passing the PE civil water resources and environmental exam is acceptable for that. So once you have your license, you can practice. I will have my work experience done by June. Can I submit now and state the work is in progress? No, you can't claim work experience in the future because we need your reference to verify it. These are great questions. Would one be excused from the FE if having more than 10 years of experience, or is the FE still required to get the PE? That will depend on what your undergraduate degree program is or what your education is. So it would, if you have a non-accredited bachelor's degree, you need to have 17 years of experience. If you have an accredited, ABET accredited bachelor's degree, you need 15 years of experience. If you have an ABET accredited master's degree, you would need 14 years of experience. And if you have a board approved PhD, then you would need 12 months of experience. So depending on your education, you can figure that out. If you have an ABET accredited degree in another discipline, how many years can you claim for educate? So again, your degree doesn't matter what discipline of engineering. We're just looking that it's accredited by ABET. I have a license in Nevada. Do I need 2 additional years in California to sit for the seismic and surveying exams? Yeah, you have to meet the requirements in California. So you would need 6 years of experience, or depending on what education you're claiming, it might be less than that. So really doesn't matter if you're licensed in another state, you still have to meet the same requirements that somebody who is not licensed needs to meet. From start to approve, how long is the review time for the application? I can't really answer that because it depends if you get deficiencies. I would say that if you have 0 deficiencies, if you submitted your application in mid-February, we're reviewing it right now. So that's what, 2 months. So we'll say 3 months for approved, no deficiencies. But because there's 500 applications in technical review, we're kind of saying the 3 to 6 month range just to cover that. Can I get a copy of the PowerPoints? Yes, I will provide PDF. How they get distributed is up to you guys. Would a bachelor's degree in mechanical? Yes, answered that. Oh, electrical engineer degree versus electrical engineer technology. Thank you for that. So I didn't include it on the slide, but when looking at how much experience you get for education, if it's a ABET accredited technology degree, you get 2 years of experience credit. So ABET accredited bachelor's degree from a technology program would be 2 years. Whereas ABET accredited electrical engineering degree would be 4 years of credit. Is one reference needed for each work experience while the 4 references are separate from the work experience? So you're going to submit 4 engagement records because it's 4 references. So it could be one work, you could have the same work experience duplicated on all 4, and that would be your 4 references. I think that's what you're asking. Are they separate from the work experience? Oh, are they separate from the work experience references? No, they're the same. It's not references to verify your work experience and then additionally 4 references. It's all the same people. Is the education the same for EE versus EET? Both. Okay, so I answered that, I think. If we passed the 8-hour but never submitted the board application, is the 2-year inactive period count? Okay. Your previously passed exam would still be okay. Yes, your exam results for the national exams do not expire. So that would be fine. So if you took your FE and your PE exam before COVID and haven't attempted anything since, no application, your results are still eligible. They do not expire. I begin my application even if I don't have enough years of experience. You have to have the experience. Again, when you submit your application, although for civil engineering you have 2 more exams, you're really submitting an application for your license, because when your application is approved, you're going to be able to take the seismic and survey exams, and then as soon as you pass those, you're going to be issued your license. You're not going to have to submit anything additional to the board to be reviewed before your license is issued. So we're using your application to determine whether you qualify to be licensed. So you have to have the required experience on your application before you can take those 2 exams. If you claim 47 months and you need 48 months, then we can only accept what is claimed on your application. So don't submit your application until you have the required months of experience. We can't assume that you continued working on the same projects. Thank you for answering that question. I know it's a big question, and I feel for people who have applications in, but just know we have multiple people reviewing them, so we're doing as best as we can. Bachelor's, master's in mechanical, working under a civil, can I still claim education as experience? Yes, as long as it's ABET accredited. And even if it's not ABET accredited, it's engineering, so you could still get 2 years of credit. So answered that one. ABET, bachelor's and master's, does that count to 2 + 5 years? If you have an ABET master or if you have an ABET master's, then you would get 5 years of credit and you would need 1 year of work experience. Person has 3 doctorate degrees. Awesome. Any benefits? Only if one of them is in engineering and from a board approved program, then it would be 1 year of work experience. Oh, they're hopping around now. Does a power emphasis in electrical engineering count as additional times? I don't know that answer. But as far as ABET accredited program for PE, we're again just looking at your degree. So if you have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, it doesn't matter what your emphasis is. You're only going to get 4 years of credit for an ABET accredited program. My father's a licensed structural engineer. I worked for him for a long time. Can I count that? Yes. So you need a minimum of 4 references who are not related to you. If you have to claim work experience under a reference or under a family member, like in this case, you can submit your work experience working for your father. If they were in responsible charge, we'll be able to accept the months of experience, but you will have to submit an additional reference so that you can have 4 references who are not related to you. So you can submit a relative in order to get months of experience, but you will need to have an additional reference to have that 4-year or that 4 reference requirements. Do you require a certificate from NCS for PE exam? When you pass your FE and PE exams, you will need to verify your results so that California has access to those. So you will need to verify your PE and FE results through NCEES. But that's something you can do by logging into NCEES. Does the board offer classes to get the PE? No, we do not. We cannot endorse classes. We cannot offer classes. Our focus is on public protection and licensure. And so unfortunately we do not, but there are a lot of classes out there. There are a lot of them are virtual now. There's some great study material. NCES does have practice exams that you can purchase. I think they're $40 maybe. They're discipline specific for both the FE exams and the PE exams. The PE ones are discipline specific. So if you think you're going to take the PE civil geotechnical exam, you can buy the one specific to the geotechnical exam. They have been updated to the new specifications. And I believe they are 100 questions, including alternative item types, and they'll give you detailed solutions for those. So that's a great resource for study material for those PE exams. But I would talk to your colleagues, your supervisors, your mentors to see what classes or what study material they have used and what they like and don't like. Oh, I think that's the end. Is there any other questions? Keep them coming. Okay. What document or statement is needed for foreign references? There's now on with last week's new release, there's a document upload box available for your references. In some countries, in order to practice civil engineering legally, you just have to have a degree in civil engineering. And so in that instance, your reference would just need to upload a copy of their transcripts translated to English if needed, with some documentation stating that in this particular country, in order to practice civil engineering, you just need to have a bachelor's degree. And so here are my transcripts. So whatever it might be for those specific countries, that they can just upload that now when they fill out Part B. They can also email it to me. So sometimes for those who already have applications in Connect, if myself or another registrar reviews your application and we need that license information, we will oftentimes issue a deficiency just saying your reference indicated they're licensed in X country. Please have them email me documentation to show they're legally authorized to practice. Stop sharing my screen. And are there any more questions? Great questions. I appreciate all the questions. So thank you.
I think that's pretty much it. I appreciate you coming here today. I think it was a great presentation. I learned a lot, and you will definitely be seeing a lot of PE applications coming soon. One of them is gonna be mine as well. So looking forward for that. And again, I want to thank everybody that came and that joined this meeting. I will provide you a recording with this meeting if you email me. And Natalie, you can email me your presentation. And if I get a request from everybody, I will provide them the copy of the presentation and the recording of this presentation as well. So with that, thank you so much for everybody for coming today. And special thanks to Natalie King for doing this. And we appreciate your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day for everybody.